final stop, 79 and 3. Do you know the reason why I pulled you over, ma'am?
Why?
I trailed you about 10 blocks down that way. You're driving from all the way back there. You've been swerving for about 10 blocks.
Okay.
No, I was asking, are you blind in either eye?
No.
Okay. You can see this purple, right?
If I said I shouldn't be driving, can I go somewhere?
What do you mean by that?
I know I shouldn't be driving.
I don't understand.
I know I'm not supposed to have a lawyer, but like, I shouldn't be driving.
Okay. Is it still okay if I could check your eyes?
Do you want to tell him what you told me?
I know I shouldn't be driving. I'm sorry. But that's how I feel too.
Okay. Do you favor. Just go ahead and you can see this light. Follow with your eyes and your eyes only, okay? Stand with your feet together, arms bent by your side. Reach over past the front of your face. Follow with your eyes and your eyes only. Don't move your head, okay? Understand that? Any questions? Follow with your eyes and your eyes only. Stop. And then just go ahead and take a seat back there. Hang on 26, I'm picking the dealer. And then do you want your seatbelt on?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and get that. I
Is
appreciate
this
that.
going in your car on my car?
Yeah, it's the stuff on the hood, right?
Yeah, I just want to go somewhere.
Okay. You'll be able to make a call once we get up the county. It shouldn't be that long though. So I'll explain this process in a little bit. Just give me a second. Come on.
Roads when someone decides to get behind the wheel when they really shouldn't. So to truly wrap our heads around this encounter, we have to start right at the window of the vehicle. Just picture the scene for a second. You've got the flashing red and blue lights, the officer walks up to the driver's side window, and he asks what is literally the most standard, predictable question in all of law enforcement history. Do you know why I pulled you over? But instead of giving a normal, direct answer, the woman behind the wheel just looks around nervously, completely disoriented, and offers this simple one-word response. Why? That single word immediately hooked the officer's attention, and honestly, it should hook ours too. Because it wasn't asked with an attitude, you know? It wasn't defiance or anger. It was asked with genuine, deeply concerning confusion. Actually, let's hit rewind for just a second to set the scene. Before those police lights ever even went on, the patrol officer was just observing this car. And what he saw was textbook unpredictable driving. We're talking drifting across lanes, swerving without any warning, and just hitting the brakes at completely random moments. Now it's late at night. The officer actually gave the driver the benefit of the doubt at first. I mean, we've all been there, right? Maybe they're just exhausted from a long shift, or maybe they got distracted by the radio for a split second. Well, that benefit of the doubt, yeah, it vanished pretty fast. The officer actually ended up following this vehicle for nearly 10 blocks. Now, think about that. 10 blocks is a massive distance to be observing erratic behavior. Over that stretch, the car is just drifting from lane to lane without signaling, awkwardly hesitating at green lights. And here's the crazy part. Even after the police lights were finally activated, the driver didn't just immediately pull over. The car just sort of floated across multiple lanes before finally coming to this really haphazard, awkward stop on the side of the road. So back at the window, the officer calmly explains to the driver that she had been swerving for several blocks and had totally failed to yield to his emergency lights. Now, normally in a high-stress situation like a traffic stop, human beings fall into some pretty predictable categories. You get the immediate apologies, you get the frantic over-explanations, or you just get outright denial. But this driver? She reacted completely differently. She started speaking in these broken, totally fragmented sentences. It was almost like she was desperately trying to convince herself that she understood the situation, while her actual behavior was screaming that she had absolutely no idea what was going on. So the officer's trying to get a baseline, right? He asks another incredibly simple question. Where are you coming from tonight? And somehow, this basic everyday inquiry causes the whole conversation to devolve even further into total confusion. She completely struggled to answer where she had been. She didn't know where she was going. She couldn't even articulate what direction she was currently driving in. But then, Cutting right through that fog of confusion came this brief, fleeting moment of clarity. She looks at the officer and just admits, "I know I'm in the wrong right now." But it didn't last. Just seconds later, she sounded completely lost again. At this point, the warning signs were just rapidly stacking up. You've got the confused speech, incredibly slow reaction times, a complete lack of situational awareness, and severe difficulty answering the most basic human questions. At this exact moment, the officer realized this was far, far beyond a simple mistake. This wasn't a dropped cell phone or a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a severe cognitive impairment that was fundamentally affecting her ability to operate a 2-ton machine safely. So, obviously concerned for everyone on the road, the officer makes the call to ask her to step out of the vehicle. And wow, even that simple request turned unbelievably awkward. She kept insisting she understood what was happening, while simultaneously proving with her incredibly unsteady body language that she absolutely didn't. As he guides her to the side of the road, you can tell the officer's running through a mental checklist. Is she intoxicated? Is she dangerously exhausted? Is she experiencing some kind of medical emergency, or is this something else entirely? He had to figure out exactly what was causing this massive cognitive decay. And this leads to, honestly, one of the strangest, most pivotal moments of the entire stop. The officer is preparing for a standard vision test, so he asks a simple question. Do you wear contacts or have trouble seeing? Instead of just answering yes or no, she responds with a series of confusing, totally unprompted comments, effectively admitting that she shouldn't be driving in the first place. That single statement instantly changed the entire mood of the encounter. This wasn't just about swerving anymore. The driver was openly, albeit confusingly, confessing that she knew she wasn't okay to be behind the wheel. A second officer arrives on the scene to assist, and they begin this incredibly patient, highly professional evaluation. But guys, the cognitive impairment here was just profound. When asked to simply follow a pen light with her eyes, she really struggled to focus, and her thoughts were just jumping wildly all over the place. Rote memory facts, things like her name and her birthday, took an unusually long time for her to answer. And when asked about her height and medical history, she literally forgot the question halfway through responding to it. It clearly shows just how deeply impaired her cognitive functions were during the absolute most basic questioning. Still, through all of this, the officers remained completely patient. No yelling, no rushing. Eventually, the officer begins meticulously preparing her for the physical field sobriety tests. He's explaining everything step by step, even pointing out exactly where to place her feet. But right before the test actually begins, she suddenly stops. She looks right at the officer and asks this fateful question. If I don't do the test, is that an admission of fault? That one sentence was the climax of the stop, because it revealed that, deep down beneath all that confusion, she already knew exactly how bad this situation looked. The officer, completely maintaining his professionalism, gives her a very careful, honest response. He explains that, yes, while the physical tests are voluntary, simply refusing them wouldn't magically make the situation go away. All it would do is force him to make a legal decision based on the overwhelming mountain of evidence that he'd already gathered. He lays it all out for her. The swerving he watched for 10 blocks, the profound confusion at the window, the slurred and broken speech patterns, and crucially, her own unprompted statements about not being okay to drive. For a brief moment, there was just absolute silence on the side of that dark road. And then she quietly delivered the chilling climax of the encounter. She admitted, if I don't want to participate, I know I'm guilty. And just like that, the outcome was completely unavoidable. The officers had heard enough and they had seen enough. This had officially transitioned from a suspicious traffic stop into a full-blown DUI investigation, sealed entirely by her dangerous driving behavior and her own quiet admissions. What followed was a thoroughly peaceful arrest. Her Miranda rights were read, the handcuffs were gently placed, and her belongings were secured. But I have to say, what is so deeply unsettling about watching this unfold in the source material is the sheer calmness of the driver. Even as the metal cuffs clicked around her wrists, she was casually asking about her car and wondering whether she could call someone later. It was almost as if the gravity of reality, the fact that she was being arrested for a major offense, simply hadn't set in yet. And, this is exactly why this type of body cam footage is so incredibly powerful and why it really captures the attention of millions when it spreads online. On one side, you have the footage itself. It's quiet, it's slow, there's no yelling, absolutely no violence. It's totally drama-free. But on the other side, you have the terrifying reality of what it actually represents, because it is extremely dangerous. It shows the lethal, everyday danger of driving while genuinely believing you are okay enough to make it home. Because this is the absolute core takeaway of our explainer today. Yes, the traffic stop ended peacefully. Nobody got hurt, and thankfully, no crash happened. But law enforcement takes these quiet, undramatic stops incredibly seriously for a reason. All it takes is one moment of drifting into the wrong lane, just one delayed reaction to a braking car, or one misread light. That right there is all the space that exists between an ordinary drive home and a devastating, life-altering tragedy. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final provocative thought. We know exactly how this night ended. Safely, on the side of the road, with an arrest. But think about the unseen, razor-thin line that was walked that night. If that officer hadn't been there, if she hadn't been stopped during those 10 blocks of erratic swerving, whose life would have been changed forever by that one bad decision? It's a haunting question, right? And it's exactly why understanding the reality of impaired driving is so absolutely vital. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you guys next time.